Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to be in the Bay Area in California today, and we are talking with some individuals from a group called Worldview. And I'm going to turn it over to you all to introduce yourselves.
Sure, thanks. I'm Bree Lincoln-Hoker. I'm the founder and CEO of Worldview Studio. My background's in neuroscience. I'm a PhD in neuroscience. I also did a master's degree in international policy studies, spent some time in strategy consulting, and then realized we as a nation are not doing a very good job of connecting what we're learning in the academy with people who need new knowledge in the work that they do out in the world. And so the work that I've done at Stanford and now the work that Worldview Studio does is all about trying to make that knowledge exchange a lot easier.
Hi, I'm Nancy Murphy, and I am a fellow traveler, not fellow actually, a co-traveler, a co-learner in this whole Worldview Studio and previously Worldview Stanford world. My background is in political science, and I have a master's in criminal justice and sociology. I am deeply interdisciplinary in my interests and in the kind of work that I do, which is part of certainly what connects Bree and me. We've worked together for 15 years, previously starting out in the world of strategy and scenario consulting, helping organizations think more creatively and deeply and rigorously about the future so that they can see the opportunities as well as the challenges and be prepared for uncertainty, which is a fundamental part of our day-to-day existence, as we all know. So that's my background. That's where I come from. I have very, very diverse interests, and connecting people and ideas is really a core of everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I had to soak it all in. So people are concerned about a lot of the problems that they see in our country. And what I think a lot of people are feeling is worry that we don't have solutions that are available. But that's not really what you're finding, is it?
Right.
So you just tell us about the project you just did recently, kind of focused on almost wellness, if you will.
Yeah, so we did a project called The Power of Minds that was investigating how what we think, feel, believe, and cognitively practice influences our health, well-being, and human achievement. So this really started with seeing a lot of public interest just in things like mindfulness meditation, in growth mindset. Just people really kind of got this idea that what I believe about the way the world works actually matters. It affects my body, it affects my behavior, it affects other people around me. But anytime people kind of get to that conclusion without the science, there's always a worry. Is it real? Is it true? Is there science to back this up before people spend a lot of money and a lot of time engaging in practices, buying books, etc., that may make no difference at all? And so we set out to answer this question and found that the research is really, really clear that there are very strong impacts of what we think and feel and believe on our bodies and our behavior, and what we can achieve as human beings. We know something about the biological pathways through which the mind interacts with the rest of the body. What we don't know yet is necessarily how to scale them up, how to put them into practice, but there's some really fantastic examples out there. Like one study that was done by Jason Okonofua, who's a faculty member at Berkeley, found that when you help teachers change their narrative about why children are misbehaving in class, they can approach children with a lot more empathy. And the rates of severe punishment go way down. Far fewer kids are getting suspended. Far fewer kids are getting kicked out of class. So everybody benefits just from changing a story about why children are doing what they're doing. So that to me is a pretty impressive intervention, right? All you have to do is find a way to change the story, and you get these great outcomes that benefit everyone. So we need to figure out more about how to design our way out of the research that's done on some of those questions and find ways to scale them up.
And related to that, we need to reach across traditional boundaries to learn together, to research together. One of the really fantastic aspects of the Power of Minds project was the fact that we had 40 scholars from all over the country in a wide variety of disciplines. We had doctors, medical doctors, we had anthropologists, we had philosophers, we had people that were involved in religious communities. We had neuroscientists and psychologists and practitioners of a variety of different kinds of practices in the mindfulness space and deeply embedded in religious traditions as well. And we brought all these people together to share what they knew, to share their questions, and to really engage in a deep conversation, in a wide-ranging conversation, and hopefully create some new relationships and desires to go forward together in ways that they might not have imagined before. So again, it's really important to think big and to think broadly. And that gives you so much more opportunity to find the kinds of solutions that are out there all around us and the kinds of science that's being done to support that.
Yeah. And this is true in so many different ranges. I mean, we've done work on translating research into training programs for police to reduce race bias. You know, we're seeing it right now in addiction policy. There's so many different programs that actually work to reduce drunk driving, you know, to keep youth from getting involved in vaping and other high-risk activities. Like, we actually do have solutions. There are data that show that they work, but it's getting that information out to a broader audience and helping people figure out, well, how can I take a program that was done in a rural area in South Dakota and make it work in an urban area in Pennsylvania? There's some design work that needs to be done there, but the fundamental takeaway that we've had is that there's like a treasure box of knowledge and information and solutions that we have. We're just not fully opening it, and we're not fully sharing it.
We're absolutely not. I had this hypothesis as I started this journey that we probably have way more at our fingertips than we realize. In government, we always refer to it as low-hanging fruit. What's already working that we can at least start with.
That's right.
And then how do we edit that to make it more useful? But it's finding that information. One of the challenges we found that I felt was a really big problem was that we had a lot of these think tanks. Is that I don't want a think tank, I want a do tank.
Yeah.
Who's doing?
Yeah.
Right? How are we taking these white papers that are a mile long and translating them? I had an experience once where I was working on this program for the Pentagon where we were looking at not just reforming education for K-12, but lifelong. And someone walks in my office and says, "What are you reading?" It was this thick. It's about 600 pages. And it was about how to fund 0 to 4 education. I said, "You're in DOD, why in the world are you reading this?" I said, "Because I have a theory that there are financial and cognitive and educational and all kinds of solutions that exist in different departments and different areas that are kind of related, that if I string them together, I can create a whole system that works."
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. And I also had to ask, why in the world did they nick 600 pages? Because I'm pretty sure I was the only one to read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a problem as well. So one of the things that you all do is translate in a different way, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we're anti-white paper. We have created our own white papers when required of us, we have to say, but people just don't read 100 pages of prose.
600, just so we're clear.
Yeah, well, they don't even read 100,
government.
right? They don't even read 50 most of the time. And so why do we keep making these formats that no one? I mean, it would be like releasing all of your findings and knowledge on like a beta videotape. No one even has the player, right?
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure most people listening don't even know
what that is.
Right. So, or even just a VHS, right? I mean, if you are not putting your best ideas and your solutions into a media format that is accessible, shareable, engaging, then you're not doing the work to extract the full value out of your ideas. And yet we see white papers all over the place, coming from academia to government, from within government, from government out to the world. And the first thing that always gets done is that someone somewhere does what are the high level takeaways? And if you're letting somebody else do your high level takeaways, that's
Yeah.
really a problem. So we try to work with people who have terrific knowledge, great insights, you know, who have been the people who have been experimenting on the ground, and who really have something useful to say about how you can solve a real problem in the world. And so we come and say, fantastic that you put out that 40-page journal article. Let us work with you on, you know, how to do the video version or the infographic version that then you can put in front of people who really need to know, and it'll make it more usable.
And it's more important than ever because the biggest constraint that people have is time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we discovered running some of the courses that we created at Stanford that were both online and in person is that there is a clear difference in how generations take in knowledge, how they're willing to take in knowledge. And so either we wake up to that now and start sharing ideas in new ways, and sharing ideas in ways that invite people to respond and invite people to give us their ideas back. If we don't do that, then if we don't do that in visual ways, in a variety of media, because we all process media in different ways, then we're going to lose huge opportunities to tap in to the collective brilliance of the people that we are lucky enough to be on this planet with.
Yeah.
And I mean planet too, not just, you know, our wonderful city or Bay Area, but there are solutions all over that we have only begun to tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally true.
Yeah. The pushback though that I have is, why do you think people don't do this? I mean, because this is not the tradition.
Yeah.
This is not within the space. Those of us who've spent years of our lives, decades of our lives, poring over, learning to write these papers, we've been told they are valuable. I can remember my dissertation chair at one point saying, I said, well, here's a copy. This is when we still printed things. And he goes,
Yep.
okay, well, it's got enough weight to it. And I thought,
Yep.
huh,
Yep.
huh.
That's right.
Right? And then he asked, how long has it been since you proposed? Okay, it's been enough time. You know, it wouldn't have mattered if it was better or worse or quality or not. It had to do with this weight and time factor, which is how we measure a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so those of us in academia then start to value that, and then we perpetuate it, right?
Yeah.
And we don't develop these skills. I guarantee you, I had 0 courses on how to translate the information that I was collecting into a usable format.
Yeah.
I had 0 training on how to do video. I had 0 training on how to make Canva.
Yeah.
Or other tools like this, right? I was lucky in that I had a professor who said, don't tell me the methodology of your research, tell me the story and why I care.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of training in that, but that was lucky. Yeah. That was not typical.
Not everybody does.
No. So once we know what these issues are and why we're not getting to this place that I think everybody can agree we need to get to.
Yeah.
How do we help people get that going? I mean, is it a course in your PhD program? Is it recognizing that you need to co-work, or how do we get it started?
Within academia, I mean, you've already hit on several of the issues. Another one is that academia is still structured around guilds, which is a medieval approach to managing people and knowledge and skills, but it's true. Right. So if you're a psychologist and you work at the University of Central Florida, your guild is psychologist.
Right.
And so you frame everything that you do to impress other psychologists, right? Or to communicate to other psychologists. And that's who matters. They're the ones who determine whether you get tenure. Even though it's your university who's making that decision, they're going to get outside letters and you know, to see how you're doing. And so everything that you do is directed to this very small group of people that's really critical for you to impress. And nothing about your advancement in academia has anything to do with how well you engage the public. And in fact, if you engage the public really well, people probably think you're a bit of a lightweight because you're spending your time on the public as opposed to the people who really matter in your guild. Right. So part of it is changing the incentive structure within academia. Mm-hmm. That said, there are lots of young academics in particular who are really hungry to share what they know with the rest of the world. Having more skills would be really helpful. Having resources on university campuses would make a big difference. The NSF, the National Science Foundation, for many years has had a requirement that all grantees talk about broader impacts and how they're going to do work to achieve broader impacts of their research. I think it's fantastic. The next step would be to have the NIH and other funding agencies, DARPA, do the same. And then to say, and we're going to help you do that by connecting you with people who do it well, because we know that your training is not in video production, your training is not in data visualization, but there are people maybe through our SBIR program, the Small Business Grants Program that the United States offers, who can help you do that. Maybe it's funding a group at your university with centralized resources. So there are ways to help make that happen. But the other thing is that I think knowledge producers really need to learn from social media producers, right? So our social media,
learning. It's just really hard.
I know, but the influencers in the world, it's easy to kind of say, oh, it's lightweight, it's entertainment, etc. But they have figured out how to create engaging media. And there are lessons that we can learn from influencers to help make really useful knowledge in the social and natural and behavioral sciences available to broader audiences.
And one of the secrets, of course, is that they really think about their audience.
Yeah.
It's not just about, I have this great knowledge that people need to know, exactly. But it's like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? What questions do you have? How do I reach you? How, again, do you consume information?
And what do you know that I don't?
Yes, what do you know that I don't know? And one of the things, just changing that mindset in a way is very powerful. And it seems obvious in many ways, especially for people that are used to doing design thinking or user experience kind of work.
Right.
But it's and I think it's also broader than just academia too.
Oh, for sure.
There is kind of a little bit of empathy here that works for everyone. How can we help each other? How can we help each other learn? How can we help each other do things better? And just because you're a brilliant academic that has a PhD doesn't mean you have all the answers, and you're going to find them in unusual places.
Yeah.
I had an experience really early on in this journey where I was talking to a gentleman who, he was a concrete pourer, and he said, JJ, the problem with government is that the people design, or it's the same as I deal with in my job. The people designing where they want the concrete to go have never poured it themselves.
Yeah.
And I thought,
he
doesn't need me to explain it. He got it. He understood 100%, and he was able to translate it in 2 sentences in a really clear way, and I learned a lot from that moment.
Yeah,
right.
That's a great story.
I learned there was no need for me to go into all of the 8 million reasons that I found in government that we have issues. What we were talking about was what's missing, right? What is it that we have, and what is it that we need?
Right.
So what do we have?
In terms of solutions, or?
Well, solutions and people, and I mean, is it the case that we have to start from scratch and build all new programs, or is it the case that we already have so much available?
So I think our work has shown that we have incredible treasure trove of solutions, right? And knowledge that could be turned into potential solutions that could be used in the real world across so many different areas: criminal justice and education and health and governance. But we've got these barriers between the knowledge generators and the people who really understand the problems and can put some of that knowledge to work in ways that are informed by what they've learned, in the field over the course of a career. And, I think one of the things that we've kind of come to over time is that humans are the best connectors, right? There's no computer program right now that can go out and say, you need this knowledge, you have this knowledge, let me connect it for you. That human interaction component is really, really important. I mean, media can play a role, but if you're not having conversations with people about what they know, what they're challenged by, what they need to know, what they're learning, then you're not going to be able to help pull all of that together.
Now, one of the most important things that we learned when we were running courses at Stanford, they were big picture courses on things like the science of decision making or big data. And we would bring together professors from different departments on panels and in very interactive kinds of ways with our learners who were from all over the world, and they were professionals, they were in industry, they were in occasionally academia, sometimes government. And what was so amazing was fostering that experience of learning from one another. And truly, the professors learned as much as the learners who were there to be at Stanford to learn from these professors, because the kinds of questions that they were getting were very different. They were grounded in the experiences, the challenges that people were finding in their jobs, the problems they were trying to solve for their customers or for their colleagues. And so they would ask questions that were very different from the questions that an undergraduate would ask or a graduate student. And that sparked such a sense of enthusiasm and a sense of mutuality. That was a reminder to all of us that you don't need a PhD in order to make valuable contributions and to have insights and ideas that are worthwhile. And it was amazing because we never had problems getting professors to come back to be on our panels or be in our taking learning journeys with us, because they wanted that exposure and they didn't always get it either. So again, I think there's tremendous opportunity to keep bringing people together face to face. And also supplement that with wonderful media and other kinds of experiences that enable people to go to dig deeper and really and go broad too.
Yeah, you said something really key there. You said you don't have to have a PhD to participate. And I would almost add to that, I want you to not have a PhD to participate, right? We too often don't value people who, in academia at least, who don't have these credentials.
Yes.
And as I've gone around the country, I find a lot of really excellent plain language exclamations or descriptions about things that I would have mucked up. And they do a much better job. And it's true. We put people in a position of authority, skipping over sometimes all of that tactical activity. And in doing so, they miss out on understanding some of the problems that are faced. I had a researcher once in Department of Ed, and she was studying some intervention for children in K-12. And at the third tier, you have to take it into the classroom. You can't just do it in the lab. And they were asking for general problems that people face. And she says, has anyone else faced this problem? I took it into the classroom and you just wouldn't believe how loud it was. The kids were so busy and it was chaotic and my intervention will never work. And I thought, please let this woman be 27 years old. Please let her be 27 years old. Meaning, I hope she didn't have enough experience to know she should have gone into a classroom to figure out if it was even feasible before she started. This was a senior researcher. This was millions of dollars that were spent. This was an intervention that was never, ever, ever going to work. That didn't mean that we didn't gain some insight from her research or we didn't learn something. But this is a case of we're not working with those practitioners. We're not connecting. And I sort of feel like we need an architect, right? A human architect that says, here's all the solution possible. Here's all the problems that we're facing. How do we connect the research to the practical?
Well, this is where design comes in. I mean, starting with understanding your audience and what their deep needs are, and then, iterating towards solutions, right? And being okay with the first pass not fully working, and being ready for that feedback that tells you you've got to go back to square one or maybe square 1.5. But design work, design research, the process of design is extremely powerful, but it's underused in trying to, find ways to connect new knowledge to actual societal needs. So that's the process that we use and all the work that we do, and we're big proponents of it spreading far and wide.
I usually don't go to politics, but in this one case, I will, because I think it's a point that needs to be driven home. And that is that, as you said, the first thing is to know your audience. And when your audience is the entirety of the country, it's very hard to know everybody. But if you don't take that time, then what you're doing is following, speaking to your point of guilds. You're speaking to all your politician friends, but you're not necessarily coming up with solutions for the people. And we see this repeatedly on stage where someone makes a recommendation of how they would use Congress to spend money to solve a problem versus looking at our people and saying, who's got a solution that we can connect together and that we can make happen across the country. It's a flip in the way we do things, and I hope that people get that message. Because it's a change. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just make that one point about connecting the dots too?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the really important points here is connecting the dots and connecting the dots across all kinds of boundaries, whether they're geographic, whether they are disciplinary, whether they are state level or local or national. And it takes certain kind of people that are really good at fostering those kinds of conversations. They don't, again, it's a design challenge. They don't just happen by themselves. And it's something that I think is also a set of soft skills that we need to help people build and help people learn, help people experiment with it, help people practice. And it's really about listening, asking better questions, respecting diverse perspectives, inviting in diverse perspectives, not judging those ideas too soon, and really being generous, creating the conditions for learning and creating the conditions for curiosity. And I think if we connect the dots, there are a lot of dots out there to connect, we'll be a lot farther.